Hello. Can everybody hear me?
I don't think the mic's working.
Okay, I'll just talk loud anyway. But my name's
Lovely.
Alex,
Hi,
and
Alex.
I wanted to know who your mentor was, and how often you went to your mentor. What advice that really resonated with you?
I had multiple mentors, I think, and I sort of I think adopted them at various times in my life, and really keep in touch with a lot of them. I tried not to lean on anyone too heavily, but it just seemed like wherever I went, when I was in high school, there was a man named Lou Ramirez, who actually was the one who led me to USC. When I came here, it was probably there were probably three: Tom O'Melia, a man named Tony Lazzaro, who was in business affairs here at USC, and Warren Bennis, who I still keep in touch with all three of them. I think when I graduated, my first boss, who ended up firing me, was a mentor, and I still talk to him today. He's a great guy. His name's Al Ehringer. And then when I went to Cherokee, I had a few different mentors there, but Bobby Margolis and the guy I worked for, Jay Kester, another guy named Barry Lublin. I learned a lot from all three of those. So really, I think, the thing is, everywhere you go, there's just people that you can learn from all the time. And you guys are, you've been on a learning path for a long time as students, and in some ways, you think, oh God, I just can't wait to graduate and get out. But the learning really never stops. Once you get programmed, it's really, what drives you and what stimulates you. I mean, next week I'll go to Harvard University, and I'm doing an executive MBA class where I've been reading cases about this thick of a notebook full of cases, and I'll be in class like you guys are, all week from 7 in the morning till 6 at night, and in study groups till midnight, and love that. I go to the TED conference every year. So I think it's just always reading, always learning, always meeting people and learning from them too. And learning from each other. When I was say earlier, when Kayla, my daughter, was looking at USC, I had never been to the Notre Dame USC game at Notre Dame, and so I took her and we went. And we were standing in line waiting for the bus, and there was a student we were talking to who was a junior, and he introduced himself to us. And I said Kayla was looking at USC, and he said, I want you to know I got accepted to Stanford, to Harvard, and to USC. And I was kind of surprised, like, whoa, that's pretty impressive, and you went to USC. And he's like, yeah, I went to Harvard, I went to Stanford, I looked at all three campuses. He said, when I was at Harvard and Stanford, I felt like it was the kind of environment where if someone was successful, everybody else was not happy about it, and that everyone was just so out for themselves. And when I came to USC, the environment was that it was a team, and everybody was happy for each other, everyone was helping each other, everybody wanted each other to succeed. And that's really a very unique culture, I think, that we have at USC. It's one of the reasons why this Trojan family concept is so real, and why Trojans always look out for each other. There's just a camaraderie, there's a spirit, and even though I think the makeup of students has changed, obviously, you guys are 10 times smarter than me and my peers were when we were here. We wouldn't have gotten in today. But I think we share that common thread of that spirit, that camaraderie, that passion for the place, and that willingness to help each other and realize that none of us gets anywhere by ourselves. So this place is really magic because there's so many ways to get involved. There's so many ways to develop leadership skills. There's so many ways to make contacts, and you take all that with you.
Okay. Hey, how's it going? My name's Ofek.
Hey, Ofek.
I first of all wanted to thank you for coming and sharing your story. I think I speak on behalf of everyone in saying that this is the most incredible first day of class I've ever had.
Thank you.
I wanted to get an insight as to what your USC experience was like, aside from student body president, aside from these early entrepreneurial experiences. What kind of organizations were you involved in? What kind of classes did you feel like you learned the most from? And what ultimately about your USC experience helped shape the entrepreneur that you are today?
Well, I think that's a good question. You know, I remember when I first got accepted to USC and I applied for housing late, and housing was very tight in those days, and I lived with my grandmother for a while on her floor in Beverly Hills. And I used to commute in, and then I joined this fraternity, and they had a pledge porch, which was behind the bathroom. And there were 6 of us in this pledge porch, and we were cleaning the bathrooms every day. It was quite a glamorous experience, but it was a lot of fun. So I got involved in the fraternity and held a bunch of positions there. And then I don't know what led me to do it, but I became an orientation advisor at the end of my freshman year. And I met a lot of people through that and learned a lot about USC. And really it enhanced my sort of passion and knowledge about the history of the place. And getting the opportunity to sort of orient students was really helpful. And then got involved more in Greek life and different organizations. And then later, got into the business school and got into student government. And I think it was just every club, every leadership opportunity that I had, and every exposure that I had to other students in these organizations was just a great opportunity. I met so many amazing people, a lot of whom, I stay in touch with today. I got birthday wishes from, a whole bunch of them today, so it was really great. But I think what's interesting is that, you can be in a place like this and there are so many impressive people and everybody's impressive and everybody's different. So, you can appreciate and learn from every person you meet. So I think that probably those experiences I had were very seminal, here, and they helped shape the future. And then, when I was here, there were a couple of guys who were in the entrepreneur program who were making this USC calendar. And maybe that was inspiration for me when the whole Valley Girls thing was happening and I was an orientation advisor and all these people were coming up to me. I knew there was something there, And then when I went and did that calendar, I realized how much I didn't know about business, right? I mean, I realized how involved it was and how much I had to learn. So that really motivated me, I think, in my business experience to really soak it up like a sponge, because I think I knew more about, when you're a student, what you don't know is what you don't know. And I kind of knew what I didn't know because I had that business experience.
Thank you, and happy birthday.
Thanks. Thanks. And I was going to say that experience also, I would have failed miserably had my dad not helped me with that. And as it was, it just barely broke even or made a little bit of money, but it was humbling. It was humbling to have that experience, So when you get humbled, I think you learn a lot more when you're humbled than when you're cocky. There's something about getting your ass kicked which is very good for you. Doesn't feel good at the time, but it really works.
My name is Justin, and I wanted to know more about what was the process of trying to find capital when you had pledged the $100,000. Was it difficult? Did you know where to look?
I kind of broke it into pieces, right? So there was a debt piece and there was an equity piece, and it's a good question. So I was talking to folks who could be investors. So I talked to some customers, I talked to some of our lawyers, and then I started talking on the debt side, and I talked to a bunch of banks. And first I had to lay out the business plan, lay out the financials. This business was a $17 million business at the time, and what was it going to be over the next 5 years? So I had to lay out a 5-year plan, and I had to show investors if they invested their money today, what was it going to mean 5 years from now if we hit this plan? And I gave them a very conservative plan and a target plan and a sort of a home run plan, so they could see what the range was, and then had to show the banks, the modeling of what would happen when we borrowed this amount of money, how much free cash flow we had to pay the interest. So, how safe was this as a loan? We needed a very small loan, and there weren't that many banks, quite honestly, that would lend us this kind of money at decent rates. I got very lucky. What I did was I first pitched all the banks that I knew would never give me the money. So I went and pitched them, and I got the experience of sort of engaging and interacting with them. And then this one bank, I got to know, sort of he was kind of a person who dealt with the community, and he and I really hit it off. And he called me one day and he said, hey, I know it's really short notice, but the chairman of our bank is coming into town from Connecticut, and I had someone who canceled. And would you be willing to meet with him for lunch, because I got an empty spot and I want to fill it? And I was like, are you kidding? Yeah, I'll meet with that guy. So I met with that guy for lunch and just hit it off with him, and he loved our story. And he basically said to them, you go lend to this business. We want customers like this. So that made a huge difference. When I had the debt, it was easier to get the equity, and as I got equity, it was easier to finalize the debt. What ended up happening is that guy who introduced me to lunch with the chairman, he actually knew a guy who happened to work for Ernst & Young, who was the auditor on Cherokee's business, so he knew of us, and he knew that that guy and his dad were looking to make an investment. So he called me one day and said, would you be willing, do you know this guy, and would you be willing to meet with him and his dad? So I ended up meeting with them, and they ended up, Bob, the son, ended up becoming my CFO and an investor, and his dad ended up becoming my largest investor. So sometimes, you go out and you meet people, and those people lead you to other people. But I think for me, because everybody knew that I invested everything I had into the business, they're like, wow, if he's willing to risk everything he has, he must really believe in this. I want to back someone like that.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Kahns, and
Hi.
you seem very calm and level-headed and confident. I'm just wondering, at any point when you were, giving your last savings account, did you look in the mirror one day and was just like, wow, I think I really made a mistake? What was going through your head? What did your wife say to you? Was she like, are you insane?
Yeah, she was a little freaked out at first, but she calmed down and she got it. And I was freaked out one time. I'll tell you a funny story. So in this process, the guys who were coming in to turn the company into a licensing company, they were people who I had worked with in the beginning, and I'm very friendly with them to this day. But at the time, they were coming back in from the outside, and they didn't want the board to sell me the business. And there was a conflict going on because the current chairman of the board wasn't getting along with the guy who was running the business. And I was talking to that guy, and there was a committee that was determining what was going on. And so basically, they were going to be making a decision. And so I called my customers up, and I said, look, at 9 o'clock this morning or 10 o'clock this morning, they're going to be making a decision whether or not you should sell me this business. And I want you to, and if I don't get to buy this business back, we're not going to be able to, I'm not that confident that the things are going to work, because the guy who's coming back in to run it, they're not going to give me a lot of inventory. We're not going to be able to provide the level of service. So if you like what we're doing and you believe in this, I want you to call up this guy who was the CEO, the chairman of the board rather, and I want you to tell him that you're behind me 100%, that you want them to sell the business to me, that if they don't sell the business to me, that I'm going to leave and you're going to go with me. And so 5 of my largest customers made that call to the chairman of the board. And the chairman of the board was fighting with the CEO who was there, and the CEO had told me, don't talk to that guy who's chairman of the board. But I knew that chairman of the board had influence over this committee. So the customers called the chairman. The chairman then went into the committee that morning and said, look, I got calls from this customer, this customer, this customer, this customer, and they're not happy and they want us to sell the business. So anyways, after the meeting, I'm sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for this meeting to end. And finally, about 4 o'clock in the day, I get a phone call from the CEO. And he and the CFO are in a room. And they tell me, the meeting's over, come into the room. And this guy's from Turkey. He had this really thick accent. He had glasses, and a beard. And so I'm kind of nervously walking down the hall, because my whole future is on the line, because the question was whether they were going to, at that point, it was whether they were going to sell me the business or not. This was before I actually raised the money. So go in the meeting, and the guy looks at me and goes, what kind of stupid ass are you? You know, what are you doing? I told you not to talk to that Chris so-and-so. What are you doing calling him? And what kind of game are you playing? You were so stupid. You had it. It was all yours, and then you played this stupid game, and it all backfired. And everyone on the board was pissed off. And like, who's this young bastard, and what does he think he's doing? And you blew it. It's over, you know? And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, my heart's just beating. And then somewhere through it, he was laying it on so thick that I realized he was bullshitting me. So I just started laughing, and then they started laughing, and then they congratulated me. But that was the scariest moment for me. So it's nice to know in these, crazy situations that somebody still has a sense of humor, And that was an important lesson for me to learn, No matter how serious business gets, and it gets serious at times, you got to have fun. And you got to keep it light, you got to keep it human, and you got to keep it personal. It's not, business is personal. Somebody say, oh, it's just business. It's not just business. It's all personal and business. I mean, every day here is an incredible opportunity. You are exposed to so much richness, from every class you go to, all the people you meet, all the, the administrators, the professors. It's just an absolute, gold mine of opportunities. So I think the thing is just, you got to take it all in, you got to celebrate it, you got to have a sense of awe and respect and appreciation for this place because it's absolutely magical and there is really no culture like it. I mean, it's probably one of, if it doesn't have the best culture of any university in the country, it's got to be in the top 3. So you're in an amazing place with an amazing opportunity. I'm sure there were a ton of things I missed. Right? Because you can't take it all in, but you take in as much as you can, and you give back as much as you can too.
Last question up front.
All right, so I remember hearing about how licensing, like the Disney character and stuff, was a way that you grew the business significantly. Was that your primary way of turning it from such a small thing into such a giant company, or what were the other methods?
Well, I think the licensing piece for us was a way to differentiate ourselves. When we first started, we really didn't have any cost advantages. We were a small company, and there were much larger companies, and they had a cost advantage. So we had to really innovate and create products that were different, that would help us to sort of build something that was proprietary, that only we had, that nobody else had. And I think that we learned that in the process. And I think also the process of creating that kind of product gave us the ability to sort of, it gave us an enhanced creativity. And we also had exposure to all those studios and all those companies. And that exposure, I think, helped us as well to partner with those people.